It's spring practice, and every player loves the first couple of days. It's exciting. The middle is kind of a mush, and the end is exciting, much like this show.
And we're going to find out whether or not this year Saquon Barkley's in the mix for the Heisman. Can Penn State's O-line take the next step? We're here to break it all down.
Show's already in mid-season form. The Blue-White Pulse is next. Welcome to the Blue-White Pulse. Steve Jones with you. Jay Paterno rejoining us, and very pleased to have with us Audrey Snyder from DKPittsburghSports.com. Audrey, great to have you with us on this esteemed panel. I mean, really, what a resume builder this is. All right, so let's get to it. 2017 is here, but guys, the conversation is different than 365 days ago.
It's insanely different, Steve. I mean, you look back at this thing, and to me it's crazy that we're always talking about, 7-win seasons and that kind of thing, and now it's like, all right, they're preseason polls, top 10 pretty much everywhere. We'll see what happens by August, but should be up there.
I mean, Jay, they're in the conversation for a lot of things. Everybody gets to be a hot team at some point. Absolutely. Right now, they're the hot team.
They're one of those picks that people like because of the way they finished. And the way they really surprised everybody and did some great things. And we'll see what happens. Unfortunately, it doesn't get you any first downs this year.
No, and these polls don't get you anywhere, but we show it to you anyway. Here are 3 polls that, somebody has Florida State number 1. Okay, wait, do you see Penn State 6, 5, 8? Look, these are conversation pieces. I mean, that's all they are, conversation pieces. And the key is, where do you stand that first week in November? Because pole position, I think, means something in terms of the climb you make.
No question. Yeah. You look at last year, Wisconsin finishes in the top 10, Penn State finishes in the top 10. Neither one of those teams were ranked when the season started. So it still comes down to what you're going to do on the field. It doesn't really get you, but it does help you climb if you start up higher.
Right. And then, Audrey, this team's not sneaking up on anybody anymore.
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, you look at it, and last year everybody was kind of thinking, like, man, Big Ten title game, how do you build off of that? Well, this year, everybody's going to be gunning for this team, which is a position we haven't seen Penn State in a long time.
Jay, you've been in a position as a coach where you've had different teams you've had to take care of, veteran teams versus inexperienced teams. So what's different with a veteran team when you hit spring practice?
Well, I think when you're in spring practice, you're not teaching as much. You have guys that have been through the system, and the challenge is to keep them from getting bored. Because the truth of the matter is, spring practice, as I joked when we started, first couple of days is exciting, got the pads on, and then you're like, okay, we're practice 7, practice 8. You walk across campus, it's a nice day, kids are on hub lawn hanging out, and now you got to motivate yourself to get over there. So it's a little tougher with the veteran team.
James Franklin wants to keep the program on the same keel it's been on to get to this point.
100% effort on every play, every person in the program, everybody's held accountable to that standard. Most competitive environment in all of college football in everything we do. Offensive ball security and defensive ball disruption, that's an area that we must improve. And then discipline overall in our program. Go into class on time, prepared, showing up to treatment on time, prepared, being at practice, doing all the little things right, making great choices in the community.
At the same time, you want to avoid complacency because everybody's patting you on the back. You good? You good? You want to avoid that.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing that this spring James Franklin made a point to say is that Penn State has to be 1% better. And that 1% is kind of, whether it's at practice, whether it's off the field in meetings, they have to find a way to do more because when you're that high, you got to get better.
It's an explosive offense that's returning for the Nittany Lions. We'll talk about that as Blue-White Pulse continues. Welcome back. Plenty of offensive highlights from last year, and there's no question when you look at the offense, Audrey, we'll start with you. There's a lot to bring back on the table here.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, your big thing, Saquon Barkley, Trace McSorley, you look at the offensive line, all the young pieces that they have, Steve. I mean, you go through top to bottom on this roster, and that's why people are excited. The biggest thing, I think, is you have Joe Moorhead. And with Moorhead, you're going to have all these options and all these opportunities to run this offense. And the fact that this receiving core is deep, yes, they're going to have to make up for Chris Godwin, but man, do they have a lot of talent.
And believe me, coaching staff consistency, you know it, you lived it, means a lot.
Well, the good thing is when you change an offensive coordinator, you're learning a new language. And you have to translate things back to what you did the year before, what you learned. And having a guy for year two, you're not going to spring practice and you're not having to relearn and rethink those things in your mind. So it becomes second nature, it becomes conversational. And I think that's the major advantage they're going to have this year with that.
And let's take a look at the offensive numbers from last season that this team was able to compile and where they ranked along the way. Saquon Barkley's name automatically comes into the conversation when you look nationally. Where does this guy's name come up?
Heisman Trophy, right? I mean, that's the one. And I had a chance to talk to Lamar Jackson this offseason at the Maxwell Awards, and he actually played in a high school all-star game with Saquon. And I was asking him about him, and he said, you know what? He remembered that when Barkley, they were playing together in the game, jumped over a kid when they were playing together, and he said, like, yeah, this kid's as good as advertised. So when it's coming from a Heisman winner, Steve, we've all seen it the last few years.
And Jay, this university's produced a lot of great backs. When you look at Barkley's versatility, what are elements as a coach that you would like?
Well, the receiving part of it. I think this day and age and the kind of offense that they're in, if you have a running back that can't catch the ball, you've really limited what you can do, and he has shown it. The wheel routes and things he's done downfield have been impressive. Larry Johnson, I think in 2002, he had the 2,000 yards, but he had 37, 38 catches, I believe. So those things really create issues and matchup problems for defenses, and that's why he's so versatile.
And when you look at the depth there, because Kajana Carter had Mike Archie and Stephen Pitts, Barkley has Andre Robinson, Mark Allen, Miles Sanders. How much does that help keep a guy fresh?
Well, it keeps him fresh quite a bit. I mean, you look at the Indiana game last year, he carried the ball 30-something times. You really don't want that with a guy like Barkley. You want him to get, you look at Kajana, he carried the ball a lot less than Barkley did. Right. And he was able to come off in third downs in certain situations. So you got to keep him healthy. You got to keep him going.
One area they want to improve, though, is the consistency in the ground game, and the numbers reflect that. This is the stretch run, and you can see the up and down nature of this, because obviously they're going to key on it for one thing. But what would running game consistency mean, Audrey, in your opinion?
It would be huge. And everybody talks about they want a balanced offense, and we saw it with Penn State's shot plays last year. I mean, they were one of the best in the nation at going downfield with the chunk yardage. But you've got the talent there to kind of put things together and kind of pick apart teams. I mean, there's times we look at red zone with this group, and that's an area where red zone third downs, they can get better. So I think that's where you need that ground game to be a little bit stronger, a little more consistent.
And James Franklin, for one, is looking for that every game consistency from the running game.
I think, number one, it's going to start with our offensive line. I think we're just better up front. There was games where we just didn't match up well and we struggled. That was really kind of story our first couple of years. But we're past that, so I think that'll be the biggest difference. And then I think the other thing is, as the season went on, we were able to get Trace a little bit more involved in the running game, which opened things up, and we got to continue to do that. Other than that, we've done some studies. We'll have a few little new wrinkles like you always do.
And at the same time, Audrey, I want to get to the offensive line part right here, because over the years, people have looked at it with the sanctions, weakness. Absolutely. How much has that changed?
Oh, it's night and day. I mean, you look at this right now, Steve, and this is a matter of, we're talking about depth with an O-line. We haven't talked about that in a long time with Penn State, and the fact that they have flexibility. I mean, you ended the year with an offensive line that's much different right now because you've got Brendan Mann back, so now you can move him around if you so choose. You have Connor McGovern, who's getting cracks at center, so there's a kid who played as a true freshman, and you got a guy like Michael Mennett, who had the benefit of a red shirt, who now can, potentially come in here and help out.
Jay, Trace McSorley, this is an area, let's go right into your wheelhouse. You watch him as a quarterback. What are some elements that stick out to you about him?
Well, great leadership. There's no question about him. We were just talking during the break that I had a chance to spend some time with him a couple nights ago, and really he's got that it factor. He really does, and the kids respond to him, and I think that's important. I think what they're going to have to do, the challenge is going to be, what is he going to do to get better? Because in year two as a starter, everybody has a book on you now. And so when a pitcher comes into Major League, second time through, everybody goes, okay, he has a weakness here, he's not strong enough here, or he's that. And you got to make sure that there are going to be a lot of teams now, because Penn State won the Big Ten. They're going to spend a lot of time studying this offense, studying what he does, and he's got to make sure that he's ready to address those things.
And when people study this offense, like many offenses that are in the spread, there are a lot of spreads that don't go under center anymore. This would be one of them. What are the pluses and minuses of that?
Well, I think the one thing about being under center with the tail back in the eye is it does not tip your hand as to where you run the football. Well, the minute you offset that back to your right or to your left, defensive coordinators now can scheme your run game, and Indiana was very successful at that last year. It's one of the things that they did a great job. You got to tip your hat to them. So when you're trying to run the clock out, short yards, those kind of things, it may be something worth looking at. But, if that's not your system, it's not your system.
All right, so in this system last year, Chris Godwin really excelled. Another great year for him, but he has to be replaced, and he has great confidence in the people that can step up.
Our receiver core at Penn State is really deep, as you guys have known over the past couple of years. And honestly, any one of those guys can step in and really play. I think that was the best thing about our group over the past couple of years is we had a legitimate 6 to 8 guys that could step in and play at any moment. So obviously, the fact that I'm gone, any of those guys can really step in and really produce.
59 receptions, nearly 1,000 yards last year. Great Rose Bowl. Audrey, who are a couple of names that you're looking at closely to see if they can step up?
I think every year it seems like the last couple anyway, we've been having the conversations about guys like Juwan Johnson, Irvin Charles. Yes, those are two guys that you want to keep an eye on. They're big-bodied receivers. But Deshaun Hamilton is 15 yards shy of 2,000 for his career, and it's almost like people aren't even talking about it. And to me, that's kind of crazy when you look at it. They have the depth there. I think we'll see Mike Gesicki continue to take on a bigger role, which is going to be really huge for this offense as well. But, Steve, they have so much depth there that I really don't think we'll see one guy do it. I think it's going to be balanced. And Saeed Blacknall, too. There's another one.
Well, coming up, we'll take a look at the defense, because with this panel, I'm always on the defensive as we continue with Blue White Pulse after this. Welcome back to the Blue White Pulse. Great to have you with us. Steve Jones, Audrey Snyder, Jay Paterno. As we roll through now to the defense, where there are actually more starters to replace there than on the offense. Audrey, Sickles, and Schwann are the first guys that we think about. So what are some of the options there?
Absolutely. I think Torrance Brown's kind of the natural one that's going to step in there. And I'm really intrigued, Steve, by a guy like Shane Simmons. Takes a red shirt last year. This is a highly touted kid who trained growing up with LeVar Arrington, comes to Penn State, takes the red shirt, really bulks up. Shaka Toney's another name to know. I mean, there's so many guys. I feel like at this point, it would kind of be crazy to bet against Sean Spencer developing guys, right?
Well, and again, in today's game, Jay, and this has gone on for years. I mean, people are playing 10 to 12 defensive linemen because of the nature of the game now.
Yeah, because of the hurry-up offenses and everything. So you're getting a lot more depth as the season goes. I mean, you look back at the Miami game after the 86 season, that starting line, those guys played 85, 90 snaps and never came out of the game. That just doesn't happen anymore. But so there's a lot of guys that have played a lot of football, and that's a plus.
And now it gets to the linebacking depth. This is an area where they're still trying to rebuild on this football team.
Yeah, but again, they had the injuries last year, and if there's a silver line to injuries, you never liked it, but you do end up playing guys, younger guys, building depth, and they moved guys from safety up to linebacker last year, so you saw a lot of different guys get reps at linebacker, and I think that's going to pay off this spring and this fall.
Let me ask you about that for a moment, because I'm going to go back when Andre Collins moved from safety to outside linebacker. Taking the speed with somebody who can build into that body, what does that now do to change the dynamic of a defense? Because Koa Farmer made that move from safety to linebacker.
Well, one of the things it does, it gives you a guy who has a better sense of the entire operation, because when you're working from safety, you see the whole thing in front of you. It gives you the ability to cover running backs, gives you the ability to do some things. So now you got some matchup advantages on defense if you have that. Now, they've got to get the size, they've got to be able to hold up against the run game, and that's the question. And that's where Farmer, I think, has really developed, because in the middle, you got Kabinda. Brandon Smith showed he can play. I mean, and that's the key, is that maybe he's not going to get on the stopwatch, but if a guy knows how to play, it makes a big difference. Brandon Bell was instinctive. Smith's instinctive. Yeah, anticipation gets you another tenth or 2/10 of a second when you play football. Michael Zordich Sr. was an example of that. There's a guy that every clock they had him on, he only played 12 years in the NFL because he knew where the ball was going, had great instincts. So let's get to the secondary, Audrey. More depth back there. What are you looking for? You do lose a guy in Golden, but everybody else is back. And to me, the loss of Golden is a big one. I mean, you look at it, the season he had, the leader he was for them back there, you need somebody to start opposite Marcus Allen. And you look at the options, Aaron Monroe's a name that we've heard a lot of this spring.
but primarily we've seen him on special teams up until this point. So is Aaron ready to take that next step? You know, you have a guy like Troy Apke who's played a lot of football. John Patrician's finally healthy, so he'll be in the mix back there. So they have options, but it's a matter of getting comfortable, getting everybody back there on the same page, because once August hits, you don't really want to be messing around with any of that.
Now we're talking about all the names that people have heard from, but they're more excited about the new names.
Oh, they always are, yeah.
Welcome to the world of college sports. Who's the freshman? Lamont Wade. So, James Franklin, how is Lamont Wade doing?
He's got tremendous confidence, as we all saw in high school, but sometimes that kind of goes away when you get to college. That hasn't gone away. He's got a lot of competitive confidence. And he seems to learn well. You know, Coach Galt mentioned that in the weight room. It's been the same thing on the field. He learns well. And he's made plays so far. So up to this point, it's been pretty good. You know, you never know a week into this. Does he hit the wall as the installations continue to build up? Haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, you'll come in with your class, you're the big gun. If you come in early, the veterans are the big guns. So what does that take, Jay, for somebody to make that adjustment? Because now you're facing comparable talent every day.
Well, I think having the spring is a big deal. That's a huge advantage to a guy that's coming in. So I think that's going to help him. I think the thing that's going to excite people about him is if you look at the offense, defense, the positions that are easiest to come in and play early are corner and wideout, because you're essentially, I got that guy, I'm covering him, and there are not a lot of changes like there are at safety or linebacker. So this is a position I think he can come in and help pretty quickly from a medal standpoint.
And Lamont Wade will be somebody everybody's going to take a good, long, hard look at on April 22nd. All right, coming up, we get to the final segment of the show. Normally it's the G block. This one's the D block. We actually have questions from social media. I didn't know we had an account. We'll talk about that after this. Really no surprise to any veteran campaigner that I would be hooked into social media. Okay, but we are hooked into social media, so here are 4 questions. Joe in Boalsburg sent in the first one. Actually, I'll take this one. Who's going to replace Tyler Yazian at long snapper? Now, there's a guy who came in as a walk-on, good athlete in high school, did a heck of a job as a long snapper. It is a difficult spot to replace. Kyle Vasey would probably be the first person up, Joe, on that one. Next, this is from Chris in State College. With a young defensive line and openings at linebacker, who do you see filling those spots? So, Jay, Audrey, what do you think? We'll start with Audrey.
I mean, Cam Brown's one of the guys, of course, that we saw last year. I mean, big kid. He continues to get stronger in the weight room, which, I mean, again, this is Cam's first spring with Penn State football, so this is big for him. I think we'll see him take on a bigger role this year.
Well, I think one of the things that's important on defense is the core. It really sets a tone of your defense, just like baseball. So, you know, linebackers are usually only as good as the guys in front of them. So this is going to be a key spot to watch when we get into the spring. Yeah, baseball, you look at, obviously, catcher, second base, short, center field. In football, you start out 2 DTs, middle linebacker, 2 safeties, and then you work out from there. Next up is from Matt in Center Hall. Which wide receiver will fill the big play role vacated by Chris Godwin?
Ultimately, Steve, I think it's going to be a combination of guys. I mean, Saeed Blacknell, everybody saw the Big Ten title game, of course, what he did, what he's capable of doing. So I think it's just a matter of figuring out, when it comes down to it, how are the touches distributed. I think Barkley as well. We're going to see him take on a bigger role, out of the backfield.
Right. Okay. And you always say, don't forget Deshaun Hamilton.
And don't forget Deshaun Hamilton. That's right. Closing on 2000.
Okay. And number 4 from Luke in State College. Can this year's offense be more explosive than the '94 offense? Jay?
I don't know. No discredit to this offense, but I don't know if anybody's ever going to match that offense. That really goes down as one of the top offenses ever played the game of college football. If you take the top 14 guys on the '94 offense, they had 112 years of NFL experience, and that's with a couple guys that played 1 year, 2 years. So you're looking at there were 6 or 7 guys in that team that played 10 years or more. Now, that said, this offense is going to score a lot of points. They're going to have a lot of success. But let's pump the brakes on trying to compare them as to where they may or may not compare. Let's see what happens this fall before we make that comparison.
Everybody always wants to compare, but these are different times, different eras, different styles. It's all different now than it was in '94. You know, and there are guys on this team that could play on that team. There are guys on that team that could play on this team because they were just really good at what they do.
Yeah, and don't forget that '94 team, they sat out 12 quarters.
Yeah.
So essentially, one quarter of the season, they were sitting on the sidelines because they were up by so many points. So, you know, that's one of those ones that, now you want to compare it to some other ones, yeah, but '94, that to me is in a whole nother book.
Right, at different times.
From everybody, not just this
everybody.
Everybody ever played.
Everybody, right? Which is fine. All this one has to do is take care of the 12 teams in front of it. They're not have to do anything about '94.
Like I said, pump the brakes. Let's let them just focus on being the best Penn State football team they can be this year and beat the teams they got to play.
All right, Blue-White game coming up on April 22nd. Big tailgate over at the Stroh Place. For James Franklin, how do you want to work this year's Blue-White game?
I think the other thing is you'll see the spring game will be different this year. At least, you know, I already started kind of doing the depth charts yesterday on that. You know, just a preliminary one, and you know, I don't want to go ones and twos against everybody else. I want to go, you know, ones versus twos, and hopefully be able to be the first time to be able to have, you know, a really competitive scrimmage. So you know, that should be fun and that should be exciting, and I think that's what all 107,000 fans that will show up for the game want to see.
And that's the other part. I mean, you have to make a decision as to how competitive you want it to be. You went through this, so I mean,
we just wanted it over with.
Yeah.
We picked the teams on Thursday. We'd sit there before the game, and we'd get it done in about 10 minutes and say, okay, how soon can we get this done with? Because you just don't want anybody to get hurt.
Right. That's the bottom line, like Pete Massaro that one year.
You want to give families a chance to see some of the people that they want to see, and it's free and that kind of stuff, and I think it's a great event.
What about you, Audrey?
You know, it's for the fans. I mean, this is the thing where it's the 15th practice. It's for the fans, and it's for the recruits. Yep. I mean, the last few years, you look at it, they've walked away from Blue White Weekend with multiple recruits, and they're going to get some commitments, so I would anticipate that continues, especially with the role that they're on with the 2018
It'll also give you an opportunity for you to talk to more of the players after the game, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Pick their brains a little bit.
Right. Well, that's going to be April 22nd at Beaver Stadium. It's going to start at 3 o'clock. Stroh tailgate begins at 6 a.m. What, was that bad to advertise that? Okay. I just figured I'd throw it in there. Great to have everybody on the show. Audrey, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it very much. Jay, as always, appreciate that. And we'll come back before the Blue-White game. Thanks for joining us on Blue-White Pulse.